like as a percentage. 4,007. I have never.
Paul's trying to do
written
some
anything
math,
like-
and we were working through it, and it doesn't. The number makes sense, but it doesn't make sense, and so
It makes no sense. That's how I'm gonna write it. In the year-ago quarter, Amazon posted a net income of $14.3 billion. So this is the decline of, wait for it, 4,766. The good news is revenues are up 8%. A normal number.
your revenue for Amazon was $149.2 billion, which is just
I know. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. I might be using the wrong number too. Shit. I think 149.2. Yeah, so hold on. I was using the wrong number. I've done it so many times in my head. I'm fucked up. Oh, no, that's revenue. Sorry.
Mhm.
No, I want net income. Right. I'm good. I just want to make sure. Yeah, 14. No, I got it. I've memorized it because I've done it so many times. Yeah, 14.3. I know. It's so.
the number. So, Paul, I'm going to ask you a question here.
Yeah.
And we're going to play a game.
Yep.
It's called Who Can't Keep Their Mouth Shut Longer.
Okay.
Ready? Microsoft says it has 900 million users of the Windows Store.
Yeah.
You lose. We both know that number is. Woo!
Well, what that means is there are, 1 point something billion people using Windows, and 900 million of them have opened the store.
Or they all have Notepad installed and it just gets automatically downloaded once a month. And that's why they push that update, is to jack that number up.
Listen, if you're suggesting that anyone in the Windows team would ever screw with numbers, I'm going to have to take a great exception to that. There's no precedent for that at all.
Let me get out the scroll of time and...
So, yeah, here's the problem I have with this. And unfortunately, I wrote it the way they wrote it, and now everyone in the comments is questioning it. These goons on the the Microsoft Store team keep referring to desktop apps as Win32 apps.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they qualified it once was to say this includes apps written with, C and C++, .NET, I think React Native, whatever the list was. Flutter, I think, got in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those aren't called Win32 apps. Those are called desktop apps. And apps written to what used to be called the Win32 API is now actually called the Windows API.
Mm-hmm.
That Win32 is the historic name back when they switched it to 32 bits. And of course, a lot of people hear that number and they're like, well, these apps are often 64 bits now. In fact, Windows 11, as you know, is only 64 bit, the operating system. I mean, the apps, 32, whatever. But they never made a Win64 because they were able to, it just was like an automatic. It's the same API. Like they didn't have to change the APIs. They just handle the larger address space. So anyway, it caused a lot of confusion. But it's always distressing to me, and you see this with the Insider program a lot. But this is the Microsoft Store team. When Microsoft misidentifies the names of things that they make, that makes me crazy.
Yep.
And Win32 is not the name of that thing. And you know what? But here I am complaining about it. I wrote the article about it, and I used that term all over. I used it in the headline. And I should have had a note, by the way, this is not, I didn't do that. And that's on me. In fact, I'm probably going to go back and fix that this morning. It really bothers me. It bothers me that I wrote it that way, and it bothers me that they described it that way.
Well, you've let us all down again, Paul.
I know. You should be used to it by now. I don't know.
It's, along with that news, it's just been sort of an onslaught of earnings too, and not necessarily companies. The quarter after quarter of record-blowing revenues is well done now. I mean, Apple was down, Amazon was down. The only company that wasn't really was Facebook, but they didn't really beat. They just said, look, we're streamlining expenses, and they're like, okay, and then they're spread.
Yeah, but that's one way of. Listen, you want to massage your earnings for Wall Street, and there are different ways to do it. Apple gets a lot of credit for not laying off people. Absolutely. I talk about this a lot. Maybe I'm just an emotional person, and I think of myself as a logical person. And these are both the same thing, really, in this case, because I don't understand the overreaction to what we know to be a temporary situation with the pandemic in this case. And I don't understand the resulting overreaction when that time ends. Like, to me, Apple or Amazon or whoever should be able to come out and say, hey, look, the boom times are over. And as expected, these are down to a comparable that is unfair to compare us to. This is why people or companies, often compare things to pre-pandemic levels, because it's like, look, what we're comparing this to is off the charts. It's not right. This should be understandable. But you look at just numbers, like what was Apple's revenues, like
117,
90, whatever the number. Like, it's crazy. It's like they made so much money.
Oh yeah, it's
so much
an
money.
unfathomable amount.
Yep, and
net income.
Oh my God,
of
everyone's
30
complaining
billion.
about it, and it's like, what are you talking about?
I mean, they net income of $30 billion in a quarter.
Yeah, you kidding me?
That is massive.
I know.
Ridiculous.
Amazon, obviously, I mean, they're unique because they're largely they're mostly a physical company.
Mm-hmm.
We think of them as a tech company, but honestly, the biggest part of their business is a guy in a truck delivering something to your house. It's the newspaper business from the 1970s. They are beholden to certain trends that won't impact other companies. It's just, and so in this case, they're, let's say, impacted more. People have stopped spendthrifting, buying everything they want temporarily. It's probably never going to go back to the way it was, but there's a happy medium. Anyway, I don't know. These things amaze me. I just look at these numbers and I think, my God, these companies are humongous. And Wall Street looks at them like, my God, things are down. And it's like, yeah, of course they're down. What we should be looking for, what should guide the worth of a company these days, is how resilient they are to these changes. And I think when you look at any of these companies, Microsoft, Google, Alphabet, whatever, Apple certainly, and Meta/Facebook and Amazon, I don't really have as much of a handle on, but to me, these are resilient tech companies that will weather this. And there are ups and downs, and we have to lay off people in some cases, or strip this thing back, or whatever. We sold a few billion less iPhones, or whatever the thing is. These companies are doing great. Like, what are you talking about? It's crazy.
We'll point out
anyway, that's
that like the rest of the industry, Apple was not immune to like PC sales, you want to call it, whatever. Their Mac sales were down quite a bit, just like everybody else.
But Apple's an interesting company because they have so many fans, not just out in the world, but in the media. And you'll asterisk every single thing. Well, yeah, iPhone sales weren't as good, but they could have sold more if they could have gotten the components to make the Pro models. Yeah, Mac sales were down, but Apple didn't have any new Mac models they were supposed to release those MacBook Pros, but those didn't come until the first quarter. So it would have been better if we could have done that. There's always reasons, guys. I mean, I wish everyone could give every company the same leeway when something goes wrong. All these companies exist in the same world, are suffering from the same conditions. It's Apple is not particularly unique, other than the fact, my God, they made like 100 and something billion. like I mean, it's incredible.
Yep,
that's why they're the biggest company on earth. There's a reason.
Yeah,
this math thing is freaking me out, dude. I still can't get over this. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've never seen a number like this. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty big
I'm really struggling with this.
Or net income, I should say.
Net income, yeah.
But Google missed too, top and bottom lines. And
yep. Yeah, I mean, Google is most of their revenues come from ads, right? I think it was 77% off the top of my head. And yeah, I mean, the same economic conditions exist,
Yep.
To me, the big story with Google is twofold. And I didn't put this in the earnings thing because it's not part of that, but they have a big AI event coming up, which means the AI wars are on. Microsoft fired the first salvo there over the fence, and now we're going to get the response, and that's going to be interesting. I think one of the problems.
I think the real big interesting thing here too will be, how are you going to be paying for it on Google? Because are they going to try to show ads in there?
Yep. Well, yeah. So this came up on Windows Weekly, but there's this guy called Cory Doctorow, who I like a lot. He just came out with a book that he co-authored about big tech and how these things kind of turn on users. But he has an article, you can look this up. He wrote it about TikTok, and it's the what he calls the enshittification of services. And basically what happens is, like, things are free in the beginning and they're great. and because they want to get users, and then over time to get the users, and like, all right, how can we monetize these guys? And then this thing that you love because it did a certain thing becomes something else entirely. So, for example, he didn't write this, but my example is Instagram. Instagram was never a perfect place to share photos, but it was a place to share photos, and that was the point of it. You could go to Instagram and see beautiful photos.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, Instagram became a thing of outright ads, right? Which in the beginning were kind of interesting. They were like kind of these little tech-focused ads I kind of liked. And now it's all sponsored posts and videos and shopping. And I go through my feed and I'm like, what? All I see are basketball highlight films for some reason all the time. And it's like, this is not, what is this? Like, this is not why I'm here, you know? And you could point to anything that does that. I mean, you could make that argument for Windows, you know?
I was going to say Edge.
Yeah, Edge is a great example. Oh my God, Edge. Edge is bristling with useless functionality that, I mean, if you turned everything on and it would just, you wouldn't even see a browser in there. It's the old Microsoft joke about all the toolbars in Office and all you have is like a little window in the beginning, excuse me, in the middle where you can type one letter. Yeah. So how do you, I don't know. When I search for things on Amazon or Google, the top results are always ads. Sorry, that was up like 45 seconds ago, so I'm doing great. I searched for something that was it was like how do I describe this? It was basically like a drink. Let's put it that way. And the sponsored ads that were above it had nothing to do with the thing I was looking for. And it's like they were drinks, but they were not the drink. They weren't even in the same category. And it's like, what's happening to this thing? Because, you know, Amazon is incredibly useful. And part of its usefulness is the frictionless way which you can say, I want this. And it says, here you go.
Yeah.
You know,
48 hours later.
Yep. 4 hours. I mean, dude, in some cases, 48 minutes later.
Yeah, that is true. 48 hours is the old way, I guess.
Yeah. We in fact, that same drink, which is apple cider vinegar, in case anyone's interested, is kind of a weird health thing, but was supposed to arrive yesterday. So last night we're watching TV, and I was like, and we actually we finished what we were watching, and I said, hey, why don't you watch this video about this topic? And I was like, wait a minute, I was supposed to get that thing today. I'm like, that's interesting. So I opened my phone and I looked at an Amazon app, and it said it's still arriving today. It's going to arrive by 10 p.m. And I'm like, really? And it was like 9:48. I'm like, yeah, I don't see that happening. So 10 o'clock kind of came and went. We went to bed. I looked out the front door. I didn't see it. Turn off the lights, blah, 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 whatever. I woke up this morning, and I had gotten an email saying, hey, your package was delivered. And there was a photo of it. It was in front of my garage, which is why I didn't see it. But the light was shining on it, and it was dark because we have garage lights. It was delivered last night, and it was before we went to bed because I turned off the lights when I went to bed. And it's like, okay. Just Amazon. They're out at 10 o'clock at night delivering packages in my neighborhood, you know. This is the type of activity we would have called the cops on a couple of years ago. Like,
yeah, no kidding. Weird person walking,
some guy running up your lawn with a box. You know. Weird. What a world. 4,767%.